Hello and welcome to First Flight, a Star Trek Enterprise rewatch podcast where we are watching and discussing each episode of Enterprise in succession. First Flight is a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions Network.
This is Commander Tucker of Enterprise. We've got some information you're going to want to hear.
Welcome, Enterprise fans. I'm your co-host, Chris.
And I'm your co-host, Abby.
My chronometer's running backwards, sir.
Incoming transmission.
You read my letter?
That soundbite this early in the show means only one thing. Welcome to our first Mailbag episode of Season 2. We've been collecting your Porthos picks, Grappler ratings, and all other feedback from the first 10 episodes of Season 2 that we've covered. And we are here to discuss it and share some of our favorites.
We adore our First Flight community, and we have had some spirited, often very humorous chats about many parts of this batch of episodes.
Oh, and I'm out of carrots.
There are 25
Carrots!
So let's get into it. But before we begin our discussion, as always, we need to issue a read alert.
Tactical alert. All hands to stations.
There are potential spoilers ahead. We might end up talking about any part of the series at any time, so you have been warned. Wait, what's that I hear?
That bark means we're starting with some of your favorite moments, your Porthos picks. All right, I'm going to start with one I want to chat about. And this first one comes from Monique Wistaff at Imzadi666422. And her Porthos pick comes from everyone's favorite episode, A Night in Sick Bay. Which, honestly, Abby, I mean, we actually had a lot of fun with that one, didn't we?
You know, for one that we ended up not liking that much, we sure had an awful lot to talk about because it does have some very quotable moments and memorable scenes.
Yeah. So, Monique's pick is this. My regular Porthos pick is the funeral scene before Archer's erotic dream starts.
We are gathered here today to bid a final farewell to a faithful and kind colleague, a friend who would never hesitate to offer his paw in exchange for a simple smile or a slice of cheese. Like his namesake, this quadruped believed we should stand together, all for one and one for all. When one person believes their sexual attraction toward another is inappropriate, they often exhibit unexpected behavior.
She writes, hilarious, the only funny part of the episode. And yeah, I think we both agree. I don't even know if we spoke too much about that scene besides saying, where's Malcolm and Travis? But I love just the imagery of that scene with the umbrellas and they're all in their like trench coats. It's
Phlox has the preacher cadence where he's like da 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 da. And there's a great behind the scenes picture that she posted in the chat about that episode that, or maybe it's not behind the scenes as much as it's posed from that scene with everyone in their funeral clothes and the umbrella and it's all moody. And those are some fabulous costumes. So you knew I couldn't let that one go by without mentioning it.
Yeah, it really is a standout and just like outside the box. You don't see anything like it in any series in Star Trek. So,
yeah.
You know, Night in Sick Bay has something going for it. There is a very unique factor going on, and Monique's pick is a good one.
Absolutely.
All right, so then my next pick is going to go to our great friend and colleague, Melanie from Colombia. And she has a Porthos pick for Carbon Creek, you know, one of her favorite episodes. And so this is about Tamir and Jack's relationship. It's the scene about meditating and reaching a higher spiritual plane. And her helping him to go to college is just the icing on the cake.
I was just gonna play some pool. I didn't mean to bother you. What are you doing?
I was about to meditate.
Really? Are you just trying to clear your mind, or reach a higher spiritual plane. I spend a lot of time at the library.
Studying meditation techniques?
Oh, different things. Mostly about places I'd like to visit. Like Tibet, the Buddhist monks there meditate every day. And in India, they've got these mystics called fakirs. Supposedly, they can almost stop their hearts just by using willpower.
You'd be surprised what a disciplined mind can accomplish. What else do you study at this library?
Astronomy, literature. Sometimes I'll just pick a book off the shelf and start reading. What about you? What do you like to read?
I have an interest in astronomy as well.
Oh, really? Did you know that minutes after dusk, when the sun is just right, you can see Sputnik with a naked eye? Maybe tomorrow I could show you.
I've seen it already.
It's amazing, don't you think? Well, I'll let you get back to your meditating. It was nice talking to you.
And you.
That is a beautiful scene, and I agree that was such a powerful part of that episode is that relationship, and I liked that it was never anything other than them exploring each other with honest curiosity and wanting to broaden both of their horizons. It was nice to see that kind of relationship with an older woman and kind of that coming of age younger man.
Yeah, I mean, like the intellectual back and forth between them, between a kid and this woman, was really interesting and I think rare. So yeah, this is a great Porthos pick. Nice pick, Melanie.
As always.
So did you have any Porthos picks that you wanted to shout out?
I did. And in fact, I have them from the same two people, which is kind of funny. But I also want to give Monique a special thank you because she is diligent about sending in her Porthos picks. And I smile every single time. And she gets into the details. So bravo, Melanie. I always get a kick out of reading yours. The one that I wanted to highlight was from Carbon Creek. You pointed it out in your prose, the change in the dynamic of our trio. A year ago, it would have been impossible. Now, not only to Paul drinking wine, but she also cares enough to tell them that whole story. And awesome. I love that big three. So I couldn't have said that better. And that was why it ended up in our prose, because the very beginning of this season, we see that relationship becoming so powerful and so important to everything else that comes after it. So always good to shout that out again. Thanks, Monique.
Do you realize you've just rewritten our history books?
A footnote at best.
Footnote? This is like finding out Neil Armstrong wasn't the first man to walk on the moon.
Perhaps he wasn't.
Oh.
How long did this Mistral stay on Earth?
The rest of his life, presumably.
And that would be what? Another 100, 150 years?
Possibly longer.
An alien is left on Earth in the 1950s. Lives through, 30 presidents, travels the world, and no one notices him? And what happened when he finally kicked the bucket? Did the Undertaker just shrug and ignore his ears?
You asked me to tell you a story.
It was a good one. But did it really happen?
As I said, you asked me to tell you a story.
Damn, Captain. She put one over on us.
You did go to Carbon Creek.
If you check my record, you'll note that I also visited Yellowstone Park and the Carlsbad Caverns. I'm a scientist. That includes geology. Thank you for the meal.
My pleasure. You've certainly kept us entertained.
Good night.
Yeah, I mean, that Carbon Creek is the episode you go to if you need your fix of the trinity of Enterprise. You do definitely get some golden moments between them, and that's why this is a great Porthos pick. And one last thought, I mean, Monique and Melanie are the only people we got Porthos picks from. That's why they're being featured here. So send them in for the next 10, guys. We can't wait to hear all these amazing Porthos picks that you guys have too. And I think you had one more.
I do. I have Melanie's coming up. And this is just a quick one, but it was from Marauders. And she says her very favorite part about this is T'Pol kicking butt with her martial arts moves. And I have to say that is fun. It is so nice to see her using some of those classic Vulcan things that she has in different situations. And yeah, she was intense in that one. And she's got the whole outfit going on and the headband. And so, yeah, it's fun to see T'Pol as our action hero moment there.
You know, Abby, as you were talking, I was about to lean in and say, "And the headband," and you said it. It was like the words came out of my mouth. Yeah, my mouth opened and your words came out.
Aw, because the headband is just that cool.
It really is. And what's really cool is, one of my favorite episodes of Discovery is Lethe, and you see a lot of
Yes.
Vulcan martial arts in there, and you wouldn't have that without this scene in Marauders.
100%.
So that's why,
100%.
I mean, it is a vital scene for the franchise. So, of course, it's going to be a Porthos pick.
It's a perfect one for us to end our Porthos picks on and move on to grapplers here.
All right. Well, we only got 2 grappler ratings this time, so we have to share them. And the first one comes from Michael at Michael Angie on Twitter. And Michael's is about Carbon Creek. He gives it a 9 out of 10. But he says, I find it very difficult to grade episodes. But for me, this one might be a 9 out of 10. Apart from the gratuitous Tamir silhouette, there's absolutely nothing I'd change about this wonderful story. Great to hear your thoughts as always, though. And thank you, Michael. And we love hearing your thoughts. If you're not following Michael at Michael Angie on Twitter, it is a great follow for Star Trek fans because he provides some really emotionally literate and thoughtful reviews of Star Trek episodes. So definitely check him out. And thank you, Michael, for leaving not a Porthos pick, but a grappler rating.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. We've loved having your support all the way since the beginning of First Flight. And I second that he is a great follow. And not only do you get Star Trek, but he posts beautiful art on his timeline, which is just such a palate cleanser. So if you're not following him, go ahead and do that now. And I have one grappler rating. The other one was, of course, from our host emerita, Melanie. And she said from Columbia about Marauders. For grappler rating, she's giving it a 7.5. And just knowing Melanie the way I do, I think probably at least 2 of those points are simply for T'Pol kicking butt, like we just mentioned.
Absolutely. Yeah, everyone has a standout moment in that episode. And the more and more we talk about it, think about it, the more I watch it, the more I like that episode.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that I keep coming back to. And while we're not changing any grappler ratings yet, it's one that I found that last season, the one I kept thinking about over and over again was the one I ended up boosting up. So it's a contender at this point. All right, so let's dive into some more comments that we loved. We got a bunch about the evolution of the relationships between our crew members. So here's one that we each enjoyed, and I will start this time. So we got a really good comment from Kelly at Color with Wonder about Shockwave Part 2 way back at the beginning of the season. And she said, I especially loved about Archer crouching down to her level in reference to T'Pol at the end. I'd never thought about that before and how symbolic it was. And that one, once I noticed that too, I remember us having this whole chat about how he comes down, he's talking to her, he's not touching her, he's got those awesome Scott Bakula quads and hamstrings that are just keeping him in that squat for a long time. But it's a beautiful moment of their relationship, and I feel like it really helps set the tone for the rest of the season. So thank you, Kelly, for sharing that. That's a perfect little nugget.
And yeah, that crouching, I mean, when we talked about that really stood out to me. And I had to look up that scene on Tricorder. And it's going to be a favorite scene every time I rewatch that episode from now on. So great pick, Kelly.
I agree. All right, so what do you have, Chris?
So I'm going with Jordan H at Jordan LaForden on Instagram. This is for the episode The Communicator, and it's a short little comment, but it makes me laugh. When Malcolm realizes he left his communicator behind, I get such secondhand embarrassment. And this is probably less about the relationships on screen, but our relationship with the character, right? You just feel bad for Malcolm and you feel embarrassed
Yeah.
yourself because you've done it. I'm sure we've all done it. I mean, leaving a communicator on a planet, but
Oh yeah.
misplacing something important. So locking your keys in your car. I've done that. So yeah, I love that. Really relatable comment. It's
Hmm.
short and sweet, but it made me laugh, and it's so true.
It's absolutely true. I mean, you can feel that in your body when Malcolm's panicked face and he's doing the whole like tapping all the pockets, looking around, tearing stuff up. Like, yeah, we have all been there and you do feel it. And that is part of the reason that people remember this episode is because it's got that emotional connection. And you're right, it is how we connect with the character versus them within the show, but that's just as valid of a reason to love an episode. So thank you, Jordan. I appreciate you coming and finding us on Instagram. Jordan is no longer on Twitter, but she has migrated over and is still keeping up with us. So glad to see you over there.
Yeah, and it just occurred to me that that scene, that kind of moment, couldn't exist in the other Treks because they don't have pockets on their uniforms. So yeah, Enterprise. Another reason
Fair.
Enterprise is really down to earth and relatable. So okay, let's move on to another category. This is ships and equipment. And what I really enjoy from this bunch was from Singularity. All right, it's from Stuart McGilwin at Darth Emiris. And this is for the episode Singularity. And he says, I actually quite like this episode. I would have loved to have seen the captain's chair Trip would have come up with. And don't we all? I really want to see that too, because it sounded like the Swiss Army knife of captain's chairs.
It
But
sure did. And some of the things he suggested actually do show up much later. Like on the Enterprise D, there are status displays in the captain's chair and the armrest, just like Trip was talking about way back on the NX-01. So bravo, Mr. Tucker, for the good ideas, even if they didn't come to fruition right now.
absolutely. But you know what? If we did see what he was going to do, the episode long joke wouldn't have come to fruition. So I'm grateful for that really great, well structured piece of comedy.
Agreed. All right. Well, it wouldn't be First Flight if I didn't mention a food comment that we got. And I have to say that both of these food comments come from Monique again, who is right there with me. And in fact, she even called me out on one and said, This one is for Abby. And it was about the 7th when they're in the captain's mess and Trip is being the captain. She said, The meal brought to Trip looks delicious. Sandwich/burger with noodles. Also, in Archer's quarters, it's the bathroom door he throws the ball to. We see Archer getting out of it in at least another episode. And thank you so much there, Monique. We do occasionally throw out, does anybody know this or that? And she answered. And I am very happy to know that Archer is not just disturbing his neighbors who would be too kind and polite to say anything about him throwing his water polo ball at their wall over and over again when he's frustrated. And you know what? I did happen to notice Trip's meal there. Didn't bring it up that time. There were other things to discuss in that scene, but I appreciate that now when people see food on Star Trek, some of them think of me. That right down in my little nerd heart makes me smile.
It's your brand. So, it's good to know that it's alive and well. I think we were distracted by Trip's highlights
Hair gel
and hair gel. Yeah.
highlighted in hair gel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, of course, there are some other comments that don't quite fit in any category. So here's a few that we just had to share. All right, and all these comments are related to the episode Marauders, which we were saying earlier is like this sneaky great episode that keeps coming back in our minds.
Yeah.
And obviously it made an impact on you all too, because we got 4 separate comments on Marauders. So I'm just going to go through These four. This is the first one comes from at STC_Eagle on Instagram. And they say, one of the better season 2 episodes of Enterprise, and it is nice to see different types of Klingons. This episode gives you Magnificent Seven vibes. And then Matthew Parsons at Matt Parsa 81 says, another good discussion of Marauders, not the best episode of Enterprise. For some reason, it reminds me of a canceled TV series from many years ago, Earth 2. On a positive note,
I loved that series.
I've never seen it.
It was of its time, but I adored it when it was on.
So Matt keeps on going. On a positive note, it's an important episode for the continued character development of Archer. Totally. And that was an important pro or Porthos pick for one of us, that speech he gives Tessic.
Yep.
All right. And then Aaron at Rice and Rowley, I don't know if I said that right, says, that is, in my honest opinion, one of the best episodes in all of Trek. Yes, I know, I'm weird, but we're not used to our characters being the underdogs, and that one had so much nuance.
That sums it up.
I really think, yeah, underdogs, they chose to be underdogs because they could have just blown them out of the water with their ship, but they chose to be underdogs, which was really cool. Great insight, Aaron. Then this last comment on Marauders comes from Aunt G Strouch at DIEASTRA. And she says, I love this episode too. It is for everyone that has ever been bullied in their lives. Oh yeah, heck yeah. So what do you think about those 4 comments?
I couldn't help but interject here and there because I'm nodding and and yeah, sums it up, because it's so interesting because I totally felt like this was not one of my favorite episodes. And like I've said, it keeps getting better and better. And the more I talk with other people about this episode, the more I find in it. I'm still thinking about the tie-dyed fur of those Klingon costumes and those budget Klingons all the time. Like, that's one of my favorite little in-jokes of First Flight this season. So it's nice to know that this is resonating with you guys like it is with us. That's fun to hear. And I love how many comments this one has generated. It's nice to see people getting excited about the things that are getting us excited.
And excited about Enterprise. I mean, I think this is it has a classic TOS feel in some ways. So I think some of these comments kind of reflect that kind of excitement, and the bullying comment right on the dollar. So you, any miscellaneous quotes from you?
Yes, I have 2. And this is another thing that I just love, when people throw in just these little things that make me laugh whenever I get on and see them. And the first one I have here is from Mike Capella, who's at Mike Capella 98. And his first one was about Shockwave Part 2. And he said, a quote my dad still constantly quotes, a history of the Romulan Star Empire? Maybe you should put that down. And I love that. And I love, he often comments about watching with his dad or trekking with his dad. And that's how I got into it. And I think that's so fun to see that they're still having these inside jokes about Enterprise from 20 years ago. And I'm talking with my dad about Picard the past couple of days. So that one really struck me as it's cool to see families still talking about Enterprise together, even 20 years on. So thanks for sharing those always, and that one in particular, Michael. And then my second one I have is about the communicator, and it's from Scott at Mr. Scott R. And this one made me laugh because we were talking about hemoglobins and how they mentioned that they were allergic to iron, and that's why the bars were wood and all of that. And in one of my posts on Twitter, I put the word hemoglobins in the post, and he said, misread that as hemogoblins and immediately thought I'd missed a sequel to the season 1 vampire alien episode before rereading. But yes, very fun episode, regardless of goblin mode status.
Oh gosh.
And I can't even read that without laughing. So thank you, Scott, for sharing that. Every time I read it, it's still funny. And now hemogoblins is floating somewhere around in my head. And next Halloween, maybe they're coming out to play.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so fun. And we're language people, so those little miscommunications are just producing lots of funny humor. So there's one more that I wanted to share from Brian W. Wallace about the seventh, and he shared this on our Facebook page. And he said that he was a background actor in this episode, that it was shot during
Oh,
July.
so cool.
We all got overheated on that set, had my makeup done next to DePaul. Great memories. Whoa.
Oh,
Whoa.
I know.
It's so cool.
That's really amazing.
And that's one thing that we really called out liking about the episode, that the bar and all the background aliens was really
And
cool.
those coats.
And the coats, well, knowing now that it was July and deathly hot, those poor people with the coats
I
on,
know.
all shoved together. Then there's fire going on at some points.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brian, for suffering and sweating for us because the scene is awesome and I appreciate the coat on you and noticed the coat on you. So your sweat was not in vain.
Well, from now on, Brian will be in my mind when I watch the seventh. So thanks for sharing that.
Me too.
Something's not right. Hand me the Cretaceous spice. I'll add it to the stock. Oh, and I'm out of carrots.
There are 25
Carrots!
Okay, so just in case any of our regular listeners were afraid that this episode was going to finish without a mention of my very favorite bunch of comments this season so far, you're okay because we're going to talk about the carrot balls.
And as people might remember, the carrot balls show up on Dead Stop. And that wonderful little benevolent station replicates some balls of carrots for Malcolm. And this spawned this amazing discussion that Abby's going to remind us about, which is just perfect first flight. It's on brand.
Well, it's also funny because if you search on Twitter for the hashtag carrot balls, you go right to me in first flight. So I could not be more on brand. I literally am the top of that hashtag, and I feel kind of bad because I guess there is a Parisian carrots recipe that had a whole lot of traffic before this, and now they're kind of far down there, but that's okay because the carrot balls make me stupidly happy. So if you don't remember exactly, there is a screenshot and I've drawn some arrows on that to point at it. So you'll be able to see that. And I was back and forthing with Peter, who's Peter Trek1 on Twitter, and he had taken a screenshot and talked a little bit about something else. And I just wrote, I see carrot balls in the screenshot. And he goes, I didn't notice at first, but now that you mention it, I see them now. And so I just have to mention that I will never, ever, ever watch this episode again. And I watch this one a lot because I like it without trying to freeze on that particular screen with the carrot balls because, cauliflower, broccoli, and carrot balls. And then we keep going back and forth. And then later on, he's like, wait, I thought that those were some sort of tomato. And I was like, I know, that's what I thought at first. And then we thought it was cantaloupe, but cantaloupe and steak is disgusting. And so it's just, it kept going. And then later on, we had even more people going, oh my goodness, what on earth, carrot balls? And we just went on and on and on. And finally, Chris chimes in and goes, the carrot ball discourse begins again. And my response, which will always be my response, is there should always be carrot ball discourse. I don't know if you guys are finding this even a fraction as funny as I am, but if you are, thank you, universe, and thank you, First Flight family, for encouraging my love of this really bizarre Enterprise food moment. It will never cease to make me smile.
Okay, but I have to say this. The first screenshot of the conversation begins January 28th. And then when I say the carrot ball discourse begins again, that's March 21st. Like, this is ongoing carrot ball discussion. And I expect it to pick
And
up
it's
after this
lovely.
episode too. When this launches, everyone start dropping your favorite carrot ball recipes. All right, let's start making them up. Let's go. Carrot balls. The carrot balls in your court.
Was in your court. And you know what? I will personally take some pictures of me making carrot balls if we have enough people interested in it. And by enough, I'm going to say 5. 5 people tell me to make carrot balls, and I will take a picture of myself making carrot balls because it has brought that much joy to me. And you know what? There really isn't a better way to finish the mailbag episode than the glory of carrot balls.
Yeah, this needs to be a t-shirt.
My chronometer's running backwards, sir.
Incoming transmission.
You read my letter?
Yep, you heard it again. We're bookending this episode with Daniel's time tubes. As you noticed from the fun. Speaking of jokes,
we are tired and punchy, but
speaking of jokes for First Flight, that's a reference to our beloved, our admiration for Daniel's impeccable fashion, covering this onesie unitard with tubes that we imagine has something to do with time travel. Time tubes. Like Tilly.
Very strategically placed time tubes.
Yes. Tilly says in season 2 of Discovery, what is the episode? Lights and Shadows.
Yes.
She says, if you put time in front of anything, it sounds cooler. Well, for this one, it doesn't sound cooler. It sounds goofier. Time tubes. Anyway, as you notice from the fun we had in this episode, it's still happening. We want to remind you that we adore getting feedback and thoughts from you guys because it can only make things better. We've had lots of chats on social media with so many of you and loved sharing some of our favorite tidbits. So again, this is your invitation to send us any Grappler ratings, Porthos picks, or general comments. But unlike those 4th graders who sent questions to the Enterprise, no poop questions will be accepted.
To the students of Ms. Malvin's 4th grade class at the Worley Elementary School in Kenmare, County Kerry, Ireland. This is Captain Archer aboard the starship Enterprise. On behalf of the entire crew, I'd like to thank you for your transmission. We all got a real kick out of your drawings and letters. You asked a lot of interesting questions. I wish we had time to answer all of them, but if we did that, we wouldn't get much exploring done. So I've selected a few, and hopefully our answers will give you a better idea of what life is like out here. Here's one from Molly McCook. When you flush the toilet, where does it go? That sounds like an engineering question. So we'll ask Commander Charles Tucker, our chief engineer. Trip?
Pause it, will you? A poop question, sir? Can I talk about the warp reactor or the transporter?
It's a perfectly valid question.
Deep cut Enterprise reference right there. Gold star.
Okay. All right. So please get them to us so you can be part of our next mailbag episode.
Yes, please do reach out to us and share any thoughts or smiles or laughs that you have for us. What will be the next carrot balls, people? You can reach us at First Flight Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're also on YouTube under the Tricorder Transmissions Network. You can reach me personally at Abby M. Summer on Twitter. That's SOMMER. Chris, what's the best place to reach you?
You can reach me on Twitter at Shelf Nerds or at my YouTube channel, Completing the Shelf. We want to thank you so much for spending this time with us and you know, dealing with our giggling. This is just a celebration of the podcast and our audience, you guys. We'll be back next time with a celebration of Precious Cargo, the 11th episode of Season 2. And as always, we leave you with this quote from Captain Jonathan Archer and your moment of Melanie.
We're going to celebrate Precious Cargo?
Heck yeah.
The most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond that next star. They're within us, woven into the threads that bind us, all of us, to each other.
I have to, well, maybe I should I'll save my interesting story about that actress.
No, I don't like that one.
Well, okay, but the actress is not a great actress, but she's an awesome person.
Okay, well, that's good. I barely remember anything about this episode. There's an escape pod or something in Trip and this girl. And yeah, I think it reminds me of a terrible
romance novel plot.
No, that TOS episode there's that really obnoxious woman that Kirk slaps around a little bit and makes her humble.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Trip doesn't do that, I don't think, but yeah.
No, he's much more of a gentleman, but it is also like one of those, after the first probably 15 minutes, you know exactly how it's going to go because you've seen this 15,000 times before, and that would be fine if it was done really well, but this actress realized that acting was not her strong suit, and now she's on TV as a chef, which is her strong suit, and she's amazing. So, like, I'm glad that she figured that out. Sucks that it had to be in Star Trek that she had that realization.
Okay, but you need to find out if she prepares Parisian carrots. So we can have a perfect link.
Carrots! I'm looking at it.
I was just going to say, are you Googling right now? Oh, that's awesome.
I am. I'm Googling it right now. I don't see. She's an Indian chef, so
probably not. Yeah,
might not be her thing. But I have different glazed carrots with tarragon.
Ooh,
that sounds really good.
Yeah. Why are we always talking about food when it's almost 11 o'clock at night?
Because we're talking about Enterprise. You can't talk about Enterprise without talking about food.
No, but it makes me hungry.
Yeah, it does make you always want a snack.
Yes.
I know. And this is not the time for a snack.
Oh, unless Phlox give me some kind of inoculation against heartburn.
Well, you can always just eat a banana. It's hard to get heartburn from a banana unless you're pregnant.
Oh. That's a fact, I guess. Okay. So should I read all 4 and then we comment, or read one at a time and then comment?
Do all 4 together and then comment, and I'll comment, and then I'll put the 2 funny ones together and then comment and you comment, and then I'll go into carrot ball. There's a sentence I never thought I would say.
That soundbite this early in the show. Fluency, automaticity, accuracy, but most of all, prosody. That's the ignored one.
I love that we're literacy nerds.
Okay, here we go.